Hi, Ellen. Thanks for coming in. Why don't you start by telling us a little bit about Thrislington and who they are and what they do?
So Thrislington are one of the market leaders in the washroom industry. We supply products, cubicles, backing panels, all across the world, UK, America, Middle East, Ireland, right, primarily. We're at the top end of the industry. And our big selling point is that a lot of what we do is customizable. It's not off the shelf. It's all made to measure, and we create custom details, custom items per job. We work very closely with architects to create whatever they need to design a specification that they want.
And Thrislington are part of a wider group as well, aren't they? How do you fit into the wider Bob Brick group?
Yeah, so we got purchased by Bob Brick about 4 years ago now. And Bob Brick are a washroom accessories supplier. They do have some of their own ranges of basic American cubicles, not the European standard that we call here. And they are basically, they back us to develop, like we've got here with the new software. They're quite hands off with us, but they give us the backing to allow us to develop what we do from the quite old school method that we were doing before, more manual, to now more modern systems.
Yeah. And tell us about your progression through Thrislington, because we spoke previously and you mentioned that you started off in a much different role to what you're doing now.
Yeah, so I've been with Thrislington for 7 years now. It was my first full job out of university, and I started as a technician. So I was drafting projects, working with the architects and the contractors to draw up their projects and creating the manufacture documents after that. Then I had a brief stint in working with the sales team as a technical advisor for them, where I did a year between London and the Middle East, where I was traveling most weeks to go and meet with architects over there. And then COVID hit and stopped all travel and stuff like that. So I came back to the technical team, became at first a senior technician, drawing the higher end jobs, the more difficult ones, more bespoke items, and then moved over to manage the team. So I now manage a team of 3 drafters in the UK and 1 in America.
And I'm really excited to talk about some of the automation work we've done, but to kind of set the scene, could you give us maybe describe or give us an overview of what things looked like prior to the use of Inventor and iLogic? And
yeah, so I don't think things have changed really the way we draft and create manufacturing information for probably 10, 15 years. It's still very basic. We use AutoCAD 2D, and then for the manufacturing information, we use Excel. Obviously, very time consuming, especially the good thing about AutoCAD is it's flexible. You can draw whatever you want to draw, but it takes a long time to do that. And it's likely to have mistakes because everything is manual. And the same goes for the Excel sheets. Everything we do is inputted manually. And all you need to do is get 2 numbers in the wrong order, and you've got to completely remake a door, or the whole thing can be remade. And mistakes do regularly happen. We check as much as we possibly can, but human errors do happen. And that's kind of what we're trying to eliminate with this project.
Yeah, I know, because I imagine there's certain impacts of that. You know, the cost of remaking something, the cost of time to go back and fix an error, maybe the relationship status with a customer. No one wants to deliver, the wrong thing.
Yeah, well, we all know how the construction industry can be, where it's very money orientated, very time orientated, and we're the last product that goes into a building. So we're the finished product that goes in last. So if we miss a deadline, the building misses a deadline, the contract misses a deadline. And a lot of time that comes with hefty prices and hefty back charges on stuff. So to make a simple mistake on one thing can grow and grow and grow, cause massive issues. Now we have the added thing of we ship to America and we ship to the Middle East. So if we make a mistake on a piece of glass, for instance, we have to get that remade, shipped to us, then reshipped to America, then reinstalled. That can take 10 weeks if you made a simple mistake on a custom list of just two dimensions the wrong way around.
And was there, out of all of those kind of aspects, was there a key driver to engage with man and machine when we first started speaking with you?
Yeah, so the main thing at first was that Bobrick, when they took us over, had predicted growth. It was all about the growth that we predicted, particularly because they had an infrastructure within America that we didn't, that they knew that they could use. And they predicted growth very, very quickly. And that did start very, very quickly. Then COVID hit, which obviously slowed stuff down slightly. And we predicted that we'd have to bring in, I think it was 3 or 4 extra drafters just to keep up with the demand that we were expecting in the next 5 years. Or we changed the systems we were using to eliminate the need for the additional people. The hard thing about bringing additional people in is that because of the nature of what we do and the product what we do, it's not a standard product. Trying to teach people the details and the nuances of all our systems takes a long time. And someone's not really self-sufficient for about 12 months. So bringing people in, although it seems a good thing, in the short term, it's actually quite detrimental to the team because somebody's have to take the time out from their day-to-day work to help that person and teach that person the additional stuff before they can then help the team in the long term. So that was the initial driving point of it, is just to solely help the drafting team.
Yeah. And did you, when we first started speaking, did you envision what the end solution has now become? Was that...
It's quite interesting because I always had a picture in my head when I was doing the drafting of what the perfect scenario would be.
Yeah.
I think the interesting thing is when you speak to the people in the other departments, in the sales team, in the product development team, in the manufacturing team, of where they can kind of see help from that product, is that we've solely built at the moment of just helping the drafting team. So it helps us do the 3D models, it helps us do the custom list, and then eliminating those mistakes and making it quicker. But the sales team see the presentations we do, and I do a presentation once or twice a year for some of the Americans that come over, the distributors, and you see the people from the department's eyes start to light up of the sales team thinking of the models we can make for architects to show off what we can do. The marketing team think about what we can do to put on the website that would look nicer than what we have now. So yeah, it's kind of, we're trying to keep it narrow at the moment and get it sorted as possible, but the possibilities are much greater than what we thought they would be when we first started scoping out the project.
I think with any project like this, that's the key, is making sure that the core function is accurate, does what it needs to do, and ultimately it's for the design team. But you're absolutely right. Once that is in place and once it's working and we've gone through the testing and the checks, and you end up with this kind of really nice automated solution, absolutely it just has a knock-on effect to the various different departments, whether it's sales or maybe it's a procurement team who were previously filling something in manually, and now it's just a nice automated output from Inventor.
Yeah, we spend a lot of time trying to keep the other departments in check and calm them down a little bit and just say the design is what we need at the moment. That's the big pinch point of what's slowing us down. We need to focus on that project. But like speaking with Chris when we're developing stuff, we'll always run ideas that come from other departments past him and say, oh, we've had this idea, would we do this in the future? And then Chris will help out, say, yeah, possibility of doing that, possibility of automating this, but possibilities down the line of doing that. So we have initial talk about these ideas and keep them in the back pocket until we've got the initial phase done.
And how would you describe the process of working with man and machine? What was that like as an experience, dealing with Chris England on the technical team as kind of your main delivery engineer? What was that like?
Yeah, it's been really good. It's the first time we've kind of done this scale of project with like a third party company. A lot of the development we do is internal. We do a lot of it ourselves or with main providers that we've worked with for 20, 30 years. So it's a new way of doing it with us. It's Chris has been great. He's the product knowledge he's got in such a small amount of time is quite remarkable how quickly he's grasped how it all works. It's like I said, it's a complicated system. It takes technicians who are drafting it day in, day out up to a year to get that product knowledge. And he's got a handle on how we want it and how it works and how to feed that back. And then we've had Sarah, who's also helped in the background to do the project management side, which is something that's relatively new to us. I'm a technician. I work on projects with customers, but not an internal software development. It's the first time we've kind of done that. So yeah, that's been really helpful as well.
Yeah, I think it's interesting how the engineer almost becomes an extension of your company, because you're right, they just learn product inside and out. By the end of a project, they're almost one of you as a team in terms of their product knowledge. Well, for you now, now that this is in place, what are your plans and goals moving forward?
So we're coming towards the end of phase 1 now. So we've got one of our cubicle systems in there and our back panel system. So the next phase is to get our other 2 cubicle systems, primary cubicle systems, in the configurator. And then we've got a locker system as well, which we need to get into the configurator. We've also been doing training with yourselves, and Chris has come into the office and done Inventor and iLogic training with us. So it's trying to gain the knowledge of the team who have always worked in AutoCAD 2D to now get hands-on, use the 3D software, get used to it, and just prove that it works, prove that what we've built is beneficial and it works for everyone.
So we spoke about the old way of working within AutoCAD. And, for me, looking at this, it's fascinating how automated it is. But could you describe what that looks like, as a design engineer? What, the process of how easy it is to use?
Yeah, so the big problem with the AutoCAD that we use at the moment is that the technicians we have a great knowledge base. They're very knowledgeable in what they do, but they spend a lot of time doing quite mundane tasks, which is the way, because of the way AutoCAD works. You just run line after line after line. So you'll start with a floor plan and then you have to draw the elevation. Change the floor plan, you have to go back and change the elevation. And they spend a lot of time wasting drawings which are important, but slight changes can make a big time difference. So the great thing about the new configurator is it's all drop-down menus. It's not a manual process of changing it line by line. If you're changing the floor gap between the bottom of the door and the floor, it's a drop-down menu to change that floor gap, and it automatically changes the floor plan, changes the elevation, and it's all linked to it. And we set up in a way that once we create that 3D model, we can press a button and it creates the drawings for us. That's automatically paged up. So you've got the floor plan, the elevation section already paged up on the drawing, which could have taken us to do a large project up to half a day's work, just paging the drawings up and filling the information within the title block, which, because we've set up in a way that we know how we work, it will automatically fill that information in for us.
I really like how you can, take that design knowledge, automate it or script it into iLogic. I find that aspect of it really interesting, because it's almost a contingency for the business. It keeps your design rules in process. You're somewhat bound to them, but you've still got the flexibility to maybe do a configuration and adjust it for something that's not been accounted for, maybe really bespoke.
So the good thing about iLogic, I think, is the flexibility with it, is that we kind of had an idea of the direction we wanted to go into, and then working with Chris, we've gone through what our current process is, and we do follow the same process, but we just automate a lot of what we do. So the mundane tasks that would take people time and take people away from doing things that make us the company we are, which is the non-standard details and the bespoke elements of it. I'll now allow the team to go and spend time on those details rather than the mundane stuff, which most people could do. You could train someone to do it, but it just takes time.
And based on your own experience, the old way of working, testing and using the new configurator, in a best case scenario, how much time do you think you could actually save? I know we've not officially gone through it and really drilled down into the numbers, but just at face value, what would be your opinion on that?
It's really interesting, actually, because now we're going through testing. This is the first question most people ask. If you pitch this to a sales team or to a distributor, the first thing they'll ask is, how much time are we saving? How quick can we get the drawings? And I think we estimate at the start we were hoping for like a 40% reduction in the time it takes us to do certain projects, certain things. And it's far, far exceeded what we thought it would be. And there's still some tweaks that are needed. We know there's still some things we could do to speed that up, and we're working with Chris in the background to do that. But we were, I think, in the testing process, we were drawing probably one guy was drawing probably 6 projects in a day, which he'd probably get through 1.5 at best with the old system. And obviously on top of that, you're eliminating mistakes. It's all information's there. Once you create that 3D model, the custom list is already in the background. You just need to press the button and it's in the background. So if you add on the drawing time, manufacture time, creating the manufactured drawings, that's all done up front. So it's hard to estimate the full extent of it, but just the drawing stage of it is far exceeding what we hoped.
And I think when we first have those conversations, we always try and be as conservative as possible. But when we get to the end of a project, kind of where we're at now, it's amazing to see just how much time can be saved and just how quickly anybody who's got the product knowledge to drive the configurator can come in and just say, here's what I need, produce it, there you go. Even if it's not at the stage of manufacture, maybe you just want to produce something for a sales guy to send off to an architect or whatever.
Or we, like I said before, that we say it's up to a year before someone's self-sufficient on basic projects. So it takes a year to train someone new. With this, from day one, sit in front of the laptop and they can press the drop-down menus and create a 3D drawing that can go to the architect. So from day one, we're getting an output from any new staff or anyone that transitions to our department, which would have taken us up to a year before.
Originally, you approached us about this locker system, and memory we did some proof of concepts. We had various meetings where maybe Chris did some demonstrations, and I think the final stage would be doing a scope of works to really understand what it is that we're going to be delivering. It'd be interesting to know from your perspective what it was that Man and Machine did to kind of give you the confidence that we are who we say we are, and we are able to deliver.
Yeah, so we first came with a locker. So we released a new product, which was a locker product, and the manufacturer of that locker wanted sheet metal, folding metal data, which we couldn't do the way we were doing stuff with 2D. So we first reached out for Man Machine to create a model for the locker system. And then Chris went away and he created a proof of concept, and that went, I think he showed that to us 2 or 3 times to different parts of the team. We were really impressed with it, but then we found out we didn't actually need that element of the project. So our parent company, Bob, were looking at a different software, and it became quite clear that it wouldn't work. It wasn't flexible enough. It couldn't do what we needed it to do. So we came back to yourselves and said, we really like what you did. You really impressed us with those demos, but we're thinking about now going towards the cubicles first, because that's our bread and butter. That's what we do. It's the biggest element, and we're going to get the biggest feedback quicker with that element of it. So you guys went away again and did a proof of concept with the cubicles, using the information from our website and some of the information we'd given you of some of the dimensional changes, the flexibility we'd need. And again, Chip gave us demos of all those elements to the wider team. And then we got together and worked through the finances of that and the scoping of that, the scheduling, and how we break that up, which allowed me to then put a report together to provide to our American parent company, who then signed off the project.
Right. From Man and Machine side, I know we're always very much keen to phase these projects and make sure that we're delivering a small amount of work, have it signed off, make sure that we're on the right track, because things seem to change as, sometimes things can change as you go along slightly. And that happened in the first instance when you approached us about lockers, and then we ended up onto cubicles.
Yeah. We didn't have a clue what we were doing when we first started. It's a completely new concept to us, a new software development. So we kind of let you guys lead us. You were the experts in what you do, and we let you lead us in how to scope that out and how to split that up into phases. We've had clear sign-off phases broken down, which were set up by Chris and Sarah, And then Sarah leads the way in making sure there's weekly meetings and that those key points are hit, and we get all sign off when they are done.
Yeah. Although a cubicle, at face value is a really nice configurable product, could you talk to us a little bit about some of the complexities involved in that, and maybe during that feedback stage with Chris, who was delivering on the project, how he handled, extracting that information from you and the wider business's knowledge and kind of building it into a configurator?
Yeah, because of the high level that we work in within the industry, the architect always wants to do something custom. So it's never just a run of cubicles. Sometimes we kind of wish it was. It would be easier for us. But the architect always wants something non-standard, always wants something special, wants their product, their building to be the best one that's there. So we have to design something custom on most of the jobs that we do. And like the perfect example is that a lot of our cubicles, particularly in America, will have different bore gaps on the same run. And it's difficult to draw that on 2D by hand. And then Chris has been able to go and automate that system where it's just drop down menus. But the work in the background to make that work has been time consuming, difficult. And we've had to go from an early stage of us trying to explain what we have always known in our head. And I've done it for 7 years. So I know, but trying to put that into a simple language that people would understand. And then Chris has got that concept, gone with it, brought their first concept back to us. And we've, on face value, it works and it does what it's meant to do. But when we go and draw it in a live project, maybe in certain scenario, it won't work. And there's like one thing that affects another thing that affects another thing. So that's all been part of the testing phases of it. And then we'll give that feedback back to Chris. And it might be an easy element to change. It might be a slightly longer element to change. And Chris will always give us that feedback, and he'll split it up into the easy deliverables, the slightly harder ones, and then the ones that we really need to go away and think, how are we going to do this properly? But there hasn't been anything we've given Chris yet. He hasn't been able to solve for us or have an outcome for us. It's just making sure that we get the knowledge that we have in our heads. And it's so difficult to get into new people and takes so long to get to those new people, to Chris, and he's then able to put that into the code, which automates that system.
You alluded to something that triggered in my brain there, which was, is there anything you've asked us to do that we weren't able to build into iLogic?
No, not as yet. No, we haven't thought of anything yet that Chris has been outright said, no, we can't do that. Some of them, it'll be more difficult. Some of them we've put on pause until the next phase of it because it fit better with the next phase. But we haven't said anything to him where we want this to happen and this to do this. And Chris has come back to us and said, that's impossible.
Good. Great to hear from my perspective. We've been using the word cubicle configurator, but more recently, I think it's been described as washroom configurator. Could you tell us why that is?
Yeah, so the original scope was a cubicle configurator. So it was a run of cubicles. And it became quite clear, especially with the acquisition from Bob Brick, and the whole aim of the company now is that we can supply a washroom. We can supply the accessories, we can supply the panels, we can supply the cubicles and the vanities. So we kind of shifted about halfway through this phase to the idea that at some point we will transition from just maybe a run of cubicles or a run of one product to be able to provide a drawing of the whole washroom. So we've got the back information of that in the system at the moment. And then with phase 2, we will transition to be a full washroom configurator, and then that will be up front that we can then add as many products as we want into one room.
With the end goal being that essentially a project can be done within the configurator.
Yeah. So the end goal is that we will have a room as one drawing, and we will drop whatever products they want in there, whether it's back panels, whether it's mirror boxes, whether it's accessories. We can drop them into one room, and then that one room has all the elements in that one area.
I think it's really easy for someone like myself to assume what the benefits of this kind of tool is for a company like Thrislington. What are some of the business benefits that you've already seen, that you maybe see coming up? Describe that for me.
Yeah, so although this was originally a drafting tool, which was to help the drafting team and to make it more accurate, quicker, and to eliminate the need for more people, we've already seen it help out other departments. So the perfect example is that we were trying to win a job in London, and they wanted a custom lock on the door. Now, for us to get that manually made physical copy of that lock to get to the architect to get signed off was on, I think, a 10-week lead time with this custom lock. So after we did the training on the modelling with Chris, one of our drafters actually opened up Inventor and modelled that lock as a 3D lock, did a basic rendering of it, was able to pass that to the sales team to pass the architect and get that element of the design signed off in a week rather than waiting 10 weeks to get the physical example of it.
That's quite astonishing. We've spoken over the last 15, 20 minutes about, from start to finish of where we are now. What are you most looking forward to next?
So I can't wait till we start using it live on live projects. We know, as the internal team that have been developing it, how good it is and what it can do. And I think once we release it and we're using it on live projects and all the distributors and the internal team start seeing what it can do, it's going to change what we do drastically. And then we've learned a hell of a lot from this first phase. And moving on to the second phase, I think we've got a lot of the teething problems out of the way. So it's really exciting to see where we can go with phase 2 and what we can get out of that and how quickly we're going to be able to get results from phase 2 compared to what we had in phase 1.
I'm most excited to see once we get to the end of phase 2 what that evolves and looks like, and once everything's put together, because as we spoke about a little bit earlier, initially we spoke about lockers and then it went on to cubicles, and I'm sure what everyone had in mind at stage 1 of that is maybe a bit different to where we are now in a good way. So I'm really, really keen to see how that transitions.
Yeah, we've been able to revolutionise the way we do technical team, the CAD team. And the interesting thing is where we can take that into other departments now, whether that's in the quoting department, the sales team, and providing some drawings up front and helping the sales team with 3D models, 3D drawings up front, or whether that goes into the manufacturer area and the information we pass to our factory and our manufacturer team, and then our guys on site that install it, and how we can make all that information better and improve the company with the basis of this configurator.
From a sales side, if you're winning more business, that has that knock-on effect. So absolutely, it'd be good to see where the other departments can benefit from it, maybe improve on, whether it's speeding up times or getting things out to customers. It'd be really interesting to look at that.
Yeah, we're future-proofing ourselves by doing this project. That's the whole idea of it, is that this is a long-term project. It's going to continue for a long, long time and keep developing. And this gives us a grounding to allow us to develop across the company in all different departments. And we'll pick those cases as and when they need to, and what gives us the biggest benefit up front. But I've got no doubt that it will help the majority of the company and the majority of the departments.
Great. Well, thank you very much for coming in and talking to us and explaining to everybody what we've done. Really appreciate it.
Of course.